over the past several conversations, I think we've heard so many key themes. Relationships. It's about getting to know people, knowing the who, listening to your gut, your instinct. And then it's also about knowing your options. You don't want to wait until your back is against a wall. You want to know what your options are. And I think, we hear about bootstrapping so often in the Ladies Who Launch community, and we also hear about venture capital. But there's this whole amazing spectrum in between that exists to support you all, from the SBA, from traditional banks to non-bank loans. And I'm just really, really thrilled and grateful to have this panel with us here. Alex, Danielle, Laura and Francis, thank you so much for joining us. And, I think part of what you'll hear us talk about is that building relationships and the ecosystem and that community is essential. It's not just about fundraising. So to dig in, I am thrilled and grateful to have Francis joining us. Francis Padilla was named the District Director for the Colorado District Office back in 2017. She is the Chief Executive Officer responsible for directing the delivery of SBA's various programs and services to help small businesses start, grow, expand, and recover, whether from COVID or other crises. Prior to joining the SBA in 2007, Francis worked for the USDA Rural Development. She's worked for the state of New Mexico and brings 25 years of just extensive experience from, public finance to community development. Ladies Who Launch, we are thrilled and grateful to have you as a partner. Thank you. Alex Wise is the Executive Director of CEDS Finance, which is Community Enterprise Development Services. It's a nonprofit, mission-driven microfinance institute. You all want to know Alex. CEDS Finance is dedicated to supporting entrepreneurs, refugees, immigrants, and those from underserved communities to achieve the American dream of financial self-sufficiency. And since she assumed leadership, the portfolio has 6x'd in terms of growth and $8 million invested in the local community. And prior to this, Alex has worked with small business owners all around the world, from Tunisia to Sudan to Somalia, and she cares deeply about the work you're all doing and financing that work. Lauren Kloock, thank you for joining us. Lauren is from B-Side Capital and B-Side Fund, and is the Marketing and Communications Director. She is responsible for overseeing the organization's brand and outreach strategies, so finding her way to all of you sensational folks. And she started with B-Side back in 2012 and is just deeply passionate about connecting small businesses with responsible capital. And B-Side was formerly known as Colorado Lending Source, which many of you have probably heard of. And the organization has helped over 5,000 small businesses. It's created over 32,000 plus jobs, and it's injected over $5 billion into the economy. You also want to know Lauren. Last but certainly not least, Danielle Schutz is the Managing Partner and Managing Director of the New Community Transformation Fund Denver, a venture capital fund for BIPOC founders, and the President and CEO of Wealth Equity Enterprises, a holding company that owns several businesses that support the mission of building BIPOC wealth and leadership. Woo! Prior to launching NCTF Denver, Danielle was the Chief Financial financial officer for the Colorado Trust, where she grew the foundation's endowment from $430 million to nearly $600 million. She served in finance and operations executive roles across industries and sectors. You want to know Danielle. And so I just want to dig in. Each of these fantastic individuals provides funding and financing to the business community. They all work together. They're all doing important things. And so, would love to kick up the conversation and start with you, Francis, and hear a little bit about, tell us what the SBA does in terms of providing funding and financing, and we'd love to hear a little bit about the relationships, like how you do the work with people, because, I think we can know about these opportunities, which we absolutely have to, but without the relationships, we're not going to get anywhere.
Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate that. And I didn't have an opportunity earlier just to say, wow, Colorado, thank you so much for turning out lovely faces. I know we represent the best state in terms of support for entrepreneurship, and you being in these chairs tonight is a testament to that. Thank you so much. I have never smiled so much at an event in probably 3 years. So I want to tell you guys that you're beautiful, really. So as Jennifer said, I am a district director of a U.S. Small Business Office district office. Every state has a district office or several district offices depending on the size of the state. And we are the only federal agency whose primary mission is to help small businesses start, grow, expand, and recover. In terms of our financial assistance programs, it's not all loans, and I love what Claudia said. She's still pre-SBA, but we can have a conversation about that. I would beg to differ. So lots of different 31 flavors of the different kinds of financial assistance that SBA has, but I think I would characterize it into 4 buckets. And it really depends on where you are in your business. So the first bucket or the silo would be, if you're a small business that's trying to start and or grow, then we deliver our loans, and we don't really do any direct lending except in the occasion of disasters. We do most of our lending through a nationwide distribution of lending partners. So in the start, grow space, and even in the expand space, these are through guaranteed loans, and our major loan products or our flagship products are 7A, and those come in a bunch of different flavors and names. And then also our 504 loan program, and I know Lauren's going to talk a little bit more about being a 7A lender and 504 loan program. But these are for almost anything that a small business might need, from startup cost, working capital, to buying your own building and your real estate. And the terms and conditions just vary, again, depending on your lender and like where you are in the stage of your business. The second type of funding that we have is for those of you that are looking for investment. We do have SBA designated small business investment companies, and they can provide both debt and or debt and equity depending on what you need, again, in your business. Unfortunately, we do not have a Colorado headquartered SBIC. I'd like to see that change sometime in the near future.
Another job?
But we do have SBICs across the nation, and they're without walls. So it really doesn't matter if you're Colorado-based, as long as they're interested in the type of business that you have and want to work with you in the debt and equity space through an SBA guaranteed SBIC loan. The third silo would be for those of you who are innovators and disruptors. If you're looking for money to help further along your research and development, to lend itself towards either selling something or a solution to the federal government, and or moving somewhere towards commercialization, then we would help navigate you through what we call our Small Business Innovation Research Awards and our Small Business Tech Transfer Awards, which is where you work with the university to kind of perfect that R&D. These are non-dilutive capital, and we don't do the direct awards, but we work with all the 13 federal agencies who by law have to set aside money for these SBIR and STTR awards. And then the last bucket is really for those of you who want to expand and grow through selling to the federal government. The federal government is the largest buyer of goods and services. We buy everything from toilet paper to drones. So if you need a bond to be able to perform on a contract, then that would be the type of capital that you can get through our surety bond programs. And lastly, in terms of relationships, we're a very small agency. I have a staff of under 15, and there are 691,000 small businesses in Colorado. There's no way that we could touch all of you with my small team. So we use a distribution network, a network of partners that across the nation you will see in almost every state. In fact, I see our Women's Business Center director here from Mi Casa Resource Center, Frances, she's in the room. We have 14 small business development centers located throughout Colorado. We are about to announce a new Veteran Business Outreach Center for the first time that will be headquartered in Colorado, and we have a SCORE chapter, and these are all consultants, mentors, and trainers who are paid by the federal government to provide these services back to you. So they're really the feet on the street, and most of their services are free and or low cost. Your federal tax dollars have already paid for this, so why would you not take advantage of that?
Thank you, Frances. Yes. The SBA, everywhere we go, from SPDCs to SCORE mentors, I mean, the free and low-cost options and opportunities out there are incredible. And then I think, would love to turn it over to you, Alex, to talk a little bit about your work, and then Lauren, for you to hop on afterwards, because I know often your work leads to your work.
Exactly. Thank you. Oh, that's not on.
Great, thank you. So up on the stage, we're probably the tiniest of funders. So I represent CEDS Finance. We are a CDFI, and what that basically means is we are dedicated to serving underserved individuals. Underserved individuals, when we're talking about bank financing, is people who can't get a bank loan. And I think Stacy somewhere mentioned this at the last panel. If you don't have money, where are you going to get money to start a business, right? And so you come to an organization like mine. So we provide financing from $100 to $100,000. Our kind of passion, our dedication, our mission is really to support culturally responsive lending. We have 14 different languages on staff. We have multiple different products. We have 40 different countries of origin in our portfolio. We're 80% BIPOC. We're 80% low income small business owners, and so we're incredibly proud from that. And I met an entrepreneur this morning who, when we started with him, he was making maybe $500 a year. He now, 4 years later, is making $1.5 million a year, $500,000, to up to $1.5 million, and it happens. It can happen. A little bit about CEDS and kind of what we do and how we do it. We're character-based underwriters, so we're trying to get to yes on two questions. Can you pay us back? That's math. Will you pay us back? And so we spend our money. If you need money, if you're backed into a corner and you need money right away, we're not the one for you. We're building that relationship. A lot of people, we've talked about shame. We've talked about maybe not being proud of your financial situation. We've seen it all. It is nothing to us, and there's a lot of people out there that just need a little bit of help. So what we do is, can you pay? Basically, we're looking at the numbers. Do they add up? You don't have to have financial projections to come to us. We will help you build them. So that's just something, and we're looking for financial assumptions that are reasonable. So we had an individual from Iraq. He bought a food truck, and I said, great, how many falafels are you going to make a day? And he said 3,000. I said, how many minutes does it take? 5 minutes. I did the math, and that was 300 falafels, right? So we're looking for just things that make sense. Character-based underwriting. Oh, so some of the things that we implement and we're really proud of, and this really helps push the boundary in terms of getting more business capital into small business owners' hands, is we don't have a credit score minimum. 20% of our portfolio is credit invisible. So that's for people who have just come to the States. They don't have a credit score. Those are for formerly incarcerated individuals. If you've been in longer for 7 years, you don't have a credit score. For people who've never taken on debt, we also do Muslim lending, Islamic compliant lending. A lot of Muslims don't take on debt because it has interest. We also offer collateral free up to $20,000 to really kind of break down the intergenerational wealth need. And so our portfolio is under collateralized, has poor quality, but what that does is it gets more money into more small business owners' hands. And I think maybe the last thing I'll say is, oh gosh, I lost what I was going to say. I don't know. Come talk to us.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. So B-Side Capital and B-Side Fund, we are a nonprofit mission-based lender as well. We offer a variety of different loan programs. Some of that is SBA. So Francis had mentioned the SBA 7A loan program and the SBA 504 loan program. Those two things function very, very differently, but they are similar in the sense that you do need a lender on board, so a bank or a credit union that can partner with us, and then we act as the liaison between the SBA and then the banks. It's really a credit enhancement program, so businesses that maybe aren't at the CEDS level, but they're also not at the lending or the bank level quite yet as well. So they need help in getting additional financing. And then we also, under B-Side Fund, we have loans where we've actually borrowed from state resources or received financing, and those loans go up to $150,000 and as low as $20,000. And we really focus on underserved communities as well. Almost 50% of our loans through B-Side Fund are women-owned businesses, so that's really cool to see that come to fruition. And those loans we've been doing for about 11 years now, so just still kind of getting our feet wet with that. And on the SBA side, we've been around for 30 years. But we partner, very closely. If somebody is not eligible for one of our programs, we do try to refer them as best we can to other partners within the community, especially SBDCs and SCORE and CEDS and that sort of thing. So.
Amazing. Thanks, Lauren. And I think, one of the things I was amazed at when I had the opportunity to connect with each of the speakers is, a business owner will go to Alex and maybe they won't be a fit for CEDS, but they are a fit for B-Side. And so the more relationships you build, the more people you know, the more options you understand, the more you'll be able to access. And so, again, last but certainly not least, Danielle, I loved Lizelle's question around how many small business owners did we have in the room, and then how many startups did we have in the room. And for all the amazing entrepreneurs and business owners in the space who care about hyper growth, tell us about the really exciting work you're kicking off and leading.
Yeah, so we're a traditional venture capital fund, and all. Well, we're not actually traditional. We're a venture capital fund, traditional, and I'll explain why in a minute. I'm a CFO and an economist, really. Didn't really think I would do investing, but during COVID, there was just so much work that we were doing around understanding what was happening to our small businesses owned by people of color and women in Colorado, and it was just honestly something that just pissed me off. Makisha will tell you I have a bias to action, is how she describes me in most rooms, where it sort of said someone needs to do something about some of this, and then finally it was like, well, Danielle, you keep yelling at everybody, you're gonna have to do it yourself. So here we are. And venture is a sub-asset class of private equity, and when I go to a lot of these events, I don't hear people talk about private equity a lot, but I'm going to. Private equity is a $70 trillion investment asset class in the United States of America. 3% of that is venture capital. So when you hear about startups and you hear about things, and there's not as many startups in this room, which is absolutely what the data looks like when you look at small businesses in Colorado and beyond, especially ones started by women, I knew that we needed an equity product, and that's a little scary, right? We take a percentage ownership of your business. That's what our investment looks like. We don't do debt product. I will do some revenue financing, meaning, as you make revenue, we'll take some of that revenue and as a way to pay us back, but it's dependent on your success, and that's the important part of venture or private equity. I mean, you have to be successful for me to make money as an investor, and I know that's scary, and there's 400 years of history in this country to describe why that is scary, to let someone take a percentage of your business. So I knew that it was important for more people that looked like me, more women, more people of color to start funds like this. They're not easy to start. It cost me $1.5 million to start the fund, to raise money, to invest money. But we invest in early stage startups, so sort of folks, someone talked about it earlier, pre-seed, seed, and Series A rounds, and we invest in founders of color. 5 of our 8 original investments are women, which is no surprise if you look at the demographics of who's starting companies, people coming out of corporate America and starting these amazing companies, completely what I call underinvested in. I hate the word underrepresented because it implies that we're not out here, and that's just ridiculous. We're actually like 70% of the United States. So, 93% of private equity of that $70 trillion is managed by white men. So you have such a disparity there when you talk about lived experience, and I'm picking that business because I understand that a consumer is going to pay for that, and then you don't have an investor that even understands that lived experience, and now you have 70% of your country that is operating a lived experience where the pickers aren't choosing. So now we have a whole macroeconomic problem in the United States of America, and I will do my part to solve for that as best I can. But we want you to be growable and sellable, right? And I don't think people say that enough when you talk about venture capital. If you started a company that you want to run and you want to pass down, and I want it to be multi-million-dollar company, by the way, no matter what your company is. But venture is you're gonna exit it. So you're going to start it, and you're going to grow it, and you're going to exit it. And I got to tell you, ladies, I really want that for you. I really do. We leave our jobs to not do that for the rest of our lives. And this is such a hard thing to do. So I just want you to remind you of that, because that can be scary. It's like, well, I'm going to run it. I'm going to let somebody else run it. The other thing about us is that we operate like a private equity fund. So I chose venture. It's the least scientific investment class of all times. And I'm an economist, so I struggle with that. But it's high risk, right? It's a high risk asset class, so people know that the investment has a high risk. You lose more than you win, usually, not us, so that's not how we're gonna play this game. People have one company that has a huge valuation over time, and it can carry the whole fund, right? Like that, they don't tell you that. That's actually what they're going for. Well, that's not a smart economics for me, right? In private equity is you have 8 out of 10 of your companies are gonna win. But the way that you do that is that we partner with you. We're high touch, right? So board seats, and I promise we're not a nightmare, but we're a group of people that have grown and scaled companies. I have had $15 billion P&Ls. I know how to pull levers in a company. You go into venture and they're like, why is this worth more than it was a year ago? And lots of times people can't tell you that. That's not us. We're going to have milestones. We're going to know what we're headed for. We're going to know when you're actually worth $10 million more than you were the year before, because if not, our whole market is fragile, right? And women and people of color have never had the benefit of getting to just be like, let me sprinkle some fairy dust on your company, and now you're worth $20 million more than you were 6 weeks ago, right? And so we're well positioned, because we have to do the fundamentals of business for people to give us money in the first place, to be operating in this economy, even as we know what we just saw in the market. So that's what we do.
Thank you.
Can you see why she's a TED talker?
Well, it's 8:13. I know everyone is getting eager and ready for some tasty bites and some beverages and making the connections and building the relationships. Before we move on, would love to hear from each you around, if you had one recommendation for our audience around something they should do to better prepare to access funds or financing, what would that one thing be for you, moving forward? So, Lauren, from B-Side's perspective, what would that one thing be?
I mean, just really know how much money you need to borrow. We talked about cash flow before, and backing yourself into a corner, and you can run into a lot of scary things. But knowing how much you need to borrow and what you're going to be spending the money on is really important from our perspective. A lot of times we see business owners that just come in thinking it's almost like a home mortgage, where you can just pre-qualify, get approved for whatever you're approved for, but that's really not the case and how it works for small business lending. We want to see that you have a really good understanding of your line items and what you're going to be spending the money on, so that you don't borrow too little and you don't borrow too much, because having that really good balance is really important. So I would say that is really essential, and then just knowing your credit score. Pull your credit score, see, what it is, and if it's low, try to figure out how to get it higher.
Work on it.
Yeah. But those would be my pieces of advice, yeah.
Yeah, I'll say two things. We've heard them all here before, earlier tonight. Ask for help, and at least with mission-driven lenders, be honest. We're not looking for the perfect person. We're looking for people that can admit when they're wrong, but we're looking for that entrepreneur that will take that mistake, that failure, that bad decision, learn from it, and grow. And I think just kind of being authentic, being yourself is part of that, and it makes a stronger application.
Francis, what about you?
I would say don't undervalue your social capital. Relationships are incredibly important, and you have a lot of champions in Colorado. I joke with all of these ladies all the time that we see each other, in that we are literally tripping over each other in Colorado to help entrepreneurs. And so find your system, find your ecosystem, find your supporters. You can go to any one of our resource partners, but you can also go to places like the World Trade Center. I see Karen in the audience right here, for those of you who want to sell into another country. You can go to a business navigation service. The state of Colorado has that. When you get one of us, you get all of us. So make sure that you build that team of all of us supporting you.
Amazing. Thanks, Francis. Danielle, what would your recommendation be?
I think one thing that's really important is that, you got to know what game you're playing. The number of assets under managed by Black women in this country rounds up to 0%.
Yeah.
It's 0.003% of people that have funds like that, like mine, that are managing private equity. And that can be an incredibly daunting characteristic, but I use it for the complete opposite reason, which is that when this is hard, which is most days, I just remind myself of that. So know the environment in which you're playing in, so you don't do the "it's me" thing. Oh, it's me, I can't do it, it's too hard. You're superheroes, give me a break. We're raising kids, we're married to people, it's weird, we have partners in our house with their towels, superhero stuff, right? So you have to know that, right? Life is crazy, it's a dance. So you just have to know how to do that. The hard stuff, it's the same side of the same coin. So just know the data around this, because it's abysmal. And that should just light you on fire. It shouldn't mean you can't do it. It means there's only opportunity for it. And I can promise you this. I promise you, this is about economics for me. We will not be the greatest wealth power in the world if we do not start figuring this out with women and people of color. We won't. They know it. They know it. The banks know it. They're starting to be whoa, we might have caused ourselves a little problem here, right? Banks closing in 2 days. If you've ever heard me talk in the last 18 months, that wouldn't have surprised you, because I've talked about it. It's a completely fragile market. You guys operate in what's called a cash economy, meaning I have to have $1 to spend $1. That's actually going to be a really good thing as you move forward, to be able to do that. And so I know it's been hard, but you know the game you're playing, because we're going into a time where if we don't figure this out in this country, we won't be the greatest wealth power. And I don't think we're giving that up too easy. I think we'll just be okay, let the women in, the people of color in, because we need more people participating in the financial systems of the United States of America. So don't quit. I promise I want to quit all the time. Just don't quit, right? You've got this. It doesn't matter how long it takes.
Love it.
I could end right there, but okay, one final piece of advice. I think, we need to know where the money is to access it. We need to have the relationships to access it. I think, each of you, one of the things I've loved learning about each of you and the work you do is that education is embedded into the work you do in partnership with small businesses. So last question, if you had one piece of advice for folks to do in the next week in terms of accessing funding and financing, what would that be? Danielle, you want to go?
Yeah, so your first amount of money should be a revenue generating thing. And we got to hire people. That's how you grow and scale your businesses. It's terrifying, but it's how it works. So how do you hire someone, even part-time, that either relieves your time to grow your business and make revenue, or makes revenue themselves as a position? So really think about how I spend this money generate additional revenue into my business, and just take it one chunk at a time, just like that. Don't try to like boil the ocean. And I'm gonna put a little bit in marketing. Nope. Get focused, put it all in marketing, business development, generate revenue. If you're good at that, get an assistant to take the other stuff so that you go generate revenue. But you gotta get help. Do not hit $1 million without 5 employees almost ever in this country. It's what the data says. So whether that's 1099 or people that you've hired on your payroll, those things dance together. So how do you think about that? Getting help. We're not good at this, ladies. They taught us not to be good at this. Go get help 10 hours at a time, but make sure that it's generating revenue into your business, whether you're a small business or a startup. Same difference.
I don't want to follow that. I mean, everything Danielle just said. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people think money equals growth, and a lot of times those two things do run in parallel, but what are you going to use that money for? And a lot of what we do, we have what we call embedded TA. So you're working with our loan officer, and they're asking you questions, and they're questioning you, and they're wanting to see, have you thought this out? How many more sales can you get because of this? And I think just really starting to think like strategically of like, what's that one thing I need to sell a couple $100 more, right? And just start from there.
Yeah, so I would say, building lender relationships. It's really important to have a lender on board, even if you're not at that stage to get bank financing. Building those relationships now so that they have a bigger picture of what your business is, and you're building that character with them. And then it goes back to like Lorena and Lee Mayer talking about always getting no. That's okay to get the no. Like we tell our business owners all the time, if you hear no from one lender, keep going. 140, 150 times, just keep going.
And I would say that, again, you want to avail yourself of all the resources that are available to you, because I'm very self-serving. I would say if you don't know where to start with your SBA district office. Ask us the questions, and we'll try to become a catalyst for you to direct you and navigate you towards the resources that we have in Colorado. But also, I would say promote yourself. Avail yourself of all of the accelerator programs as you did. Go to the trainings. If you're afraid of the finances, we all heard up here all night long that cash is king and cash flow is queen. And if you're afraid of that, then learn it. Nothing will happen to you if you understand the history of your finances and where you're going in the future. There will not be a biblical problem where you'll turn into salt if you figure out how to read and understand your ratios, because that will help you going into the future.